There I was, standing in the middle of my soon-to-be veterinary clinic, surrounded by drywall dust and the hum of fluorescent lights that buzzed like an annoying insect I couldn't quite swat away. I had just bought into this suburban dream, a place that was supposed to be quiet, peaceful, the kind of place where you could sit on your porch with a glass of iced tea and actually hear the crickets chirp. Instead, I was looking at a landscape that could only be described as the architectural equivalent of beige. The siding was beige. The trim? Beige. Even the mailboxes looked like they'd been dipped in it. It was like living in a giant cardboard box, a place where personality was strictly prohibited. But there was more. Behind me stood Gus, my contractor, a man so solid you could probably use him as a weight to anchor a boat. His mustache had weathered more winters than I had. And next to him, Marco, his apprentice, was scrolling through his phone, probably looking at memes mocking HOA rules, which, at this point, felt like my entire life. "I'm trying to bring some life to this place, Gus," I said, gesturing toward the paint swatches I was debating between. "Not turn it into a mausoleum. What do you think? Seafoam breeze or sun-kissed meadow?" Gus squinted at the swatches like they were an algebra equation. "I think the HOA would call that code violation #1 and code violation #2. My heart sank. The HOA. The very word sent a shiver down my spine. I'd already had the pleasure of meeting the head of this little suburban kingdom, Brenda, who'd left a laminated notice on my door the week before. Apparently, the welcome basket, which included a sad little packet of potpourri and one flavorless biscotti, had sat on my porch for a whole 37 minutes longer than the new resident gifting period allowed. It was a warning shot across the bow of my sanity. Gus had read it and had set it down like it was radioactive. "You've met the Queen," he'd said, and it sounded like a death sentence. Brenda was the HOA enforcer, and I'd already learned from Marco that her sense of control was terrifying. "Dude," Marco said, "my cousin's wife's sister got fined for HOA-ing a garden gnome that was non-period appropriate. The house was built in 2008. I was still trying to figure out what a period-appropriate gnome even was. Just as I was getting lost in the absurdity of it all, my phone buzzed. It was Sarah from the Paws and Whiskers shelter. They were always short on resources, so I'd been helping them out with discounted services. "Leo, it's Sarah," she whispered frantically. I'm trapped." "Trapped?" My mind raced. "Did you fall down a well? What's going on?" I asked, trying to make light of the situation, but her panic was palpable. "I'm in Harmony Creek," she squeaked, her voice barely audible. "I was just dropping off paperwork for the Millers on Primrose Lane, and this woman blocked the van. She won't let me leave. She says I violate Section 8, Subsection B, Article 4 of the Covenant for unauthorized lingering." The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. "Describe the woman," I asked, already knowing the answer. "Platinum blonde bob, like it could deflect bullets. A face like she just gargled with lemon juice. And she's got a clipboard. It's Brenda." I closed my eyes. I could already picture her. She was a force of nature, unfiltered EVYL in a cardigan. "And the puppies? Are they okay?" I asked, my voice tightening. "They're in the van," Sarah said, and I could hear her trembling. "It's getting hot, and they're starting to cry. Leo, they don't have water. Please, I can't let them suffer." Something inside me snapped. It was like a taut wire finally breaking. Petty tyranny I could handle, but endangering a litter of puppies? That was war. "Gus," I said, turning toward my contractor. "Fire up the war rig." He didn't need any more explanation. Gus cracked a grin, the stoic exterior breaking for just a moment. "Copy that." The war rig was my pride and joy, a custom-fitted Ford Transit, a mobile veterinary ambulance. It had everything I needed to perform emergency procedures on the go: exam tables, diagnostic equipment, medical supplies. And, of course, it had emergency strobe lights, the kind that could blind a man in broad daylight. I flicked them on as I pulled onto Primrose Lane, and I swear, the atmosphere around me changed. Brenda's Lexus was parked, perfectly perpendicular, blocking the shelter's van completely. And there she was, arms crossed, lecturing a teary-eyed Sarah. I didn't slow down. I didn't even blink. I drove up behind her Lexus, inches from its bumper. There, the perfect Karen car sandwich. I reached up and flicked the switch. The world exploded in pulses of red and white lights. For a moment, the beige suburb was swallowed in a frenzy of color. Windows flew open. Curtains twitched. The curtain twitchers of Harmony Creek were getting their matinee. Brenda didn't even look at me at first. She was too busy, gesturing with her clipboard as if the fate of the universe hung in the balance of her HOA rules. "Ma'am, is there a medical emergency here?" I called out from my window, adopting my calmest, most authoritative voice. I saw the distressed vehicle and CIVY in crisis and responded immediately. Brenda spun around, her eyes narrowing as she took in my flashing lights and my face, which I'm sure was the most calm expression she'd ever seen in her life. "You," she spat, her face already turning a shade of red I thought only tomatoes achieved. "You're the new vet. Turn off those lights. This is a private community matter." "Can't," I said cheerfully, tapping the dashboard. "These are my potential animal suffering in progress lights. They're wired directly to my conscience." "Very official." "I'm here for the puppies," I added, looking past her to Sarah, who was staring at me with wide, grateful eyes. 6 golden retriever puppies in that van, under my care now. They're experiencing acute distress, and I need access. Brenda's eyes turned to slits. "That vehicle is in violation," she snarled. "It's overstayed its 15-minute temporary parking allotment." I almost laughed. I see," I said, adopting my most serious tone. "I'm invoking the Animal Welfare Act, which trumps local HOA covenants. Also, the Be a Decent Human Being clause, which is more of a guideline, but one I feel strongly about." Brenda's face went from fury to disbelief. "You?" I sighed, pulling out a thermometer from my passenger seat. "All right, let's start with a basic diagnostic," I said, holding it up for her to see. "I'll need to take the temperature of this vehicle. Can you tell me if it's been showing any signs of sluggishness or fever?" Behind her, Sarah let out a half-sob, half-snort of laughter. That was the final straw. Brenda's face went from incandescent rage to a shade of purple I didn't think was physically possible. "That's it," Brenda hissed. "I'm calling the police." "Excellent," I said with a wide smile. "I've been meaning to report a kidnapping. Please tell them the Tims are blonde, adorable, and being held against their will by a woman in sensible orthopedic sandals." A few moments later, the police arrived. Officer Miller, the veteran who had seen every type of human stupidity twice over, ambled toward me with the air of someone who had been through all of this before. Officer DeVys, the rookie, was trailing behind him, notebook in hand. Brenda wasted no time, launching into her well-rehearsed performance of being the wronged, law-abiding citizen. "This man," she said, pointing at me, arrived in his truck with flashing lights, deliberately provoking a confrontation and claiming some sort of medical authority over a simple parking violation. Officer Miller didn't even look at her. He looked at the scene, the Lexus, the ambulance, me, leaning casually against my door like I was waiting for a bus. "Let me guess," he muttered, his voice a low rumble. "Section 8, subsection B, Article 4? You know the sacred texts," I said, grinning. "I've got them memorized." "Brenda's got me on speed dial," he sighed. "Ma'am, has she threatened you or damaged your vehicle?" Officer Miller asked Sarah. Sarah just shook her head, looking small and overwhelmed. "No," she said softly. "Then it's a CIVYL issue," Officer Miller declared. "But that Lexus is parked in the middle of the road, and that ambulance looks an awful lot like an emergency vehicle to me. You're obstructing a potential emergency response. Move it now, or I'm writing you a ticket that'll make your HOA dues look like pocket change." Brenda's jaw dropped. She stormed off toward her Lexus, tires squealing as she backed out of the way. The puppies were free. I wasn't finished, though, not by a long shot. The next day, I got a stack of violation notices. From improperly parked commercial vehicles to unauthorized business operations, Brenda had seen it all. She was trying to kill my clinic before it even opened. Marco, Gus, and I weren't going to sit idly by. We went on the offensive, filing complaints, finding violations in Brenda's precious yard, and even launching Operation Solar Glare to report her car's glare as a traffic hazard. It was petty. It was satisfying. And it was just the beginning. Then came the flyers. The piece de resistance. I designed a cheerful flyer announcing the first annual Harmony Creek Pet Wellness Day, to be held on my lawn at the exact same time as Brenda's exclusive garden party. Marco distributed them, except for Brenda's house. It was a stroke of genius. People were excited. Free vet ser VYC, yes. Puppies. It was a no-brainer. And Brenda? Well, she wasn't happy, but she couldn't stop it. A few days later, she filed a petition for an emergency HOA board meeting, trying to get my clinic shut down for good. But when the meeting came, I had one last trick up my sleeve. I presented video footage of the entire incident where she blocked the van. The whole room watched as Brenda's tyranny played out in front of them. And then I presented my piece de resistance: Brenda's illegal rose garden and unpermitted gazebo. The HOA board couldn't ignore that. Unanimous rejection of her petition and an investigation into her actions. Brenda? She stormed out, defeated. The community applauded me. A month later, my clinic was open and Harmony Creek was a little less beige. As for Brenda, well, let's just say her garden was gone, and so was her precious gazebo. I had come to Harmony Creek for a quiet life. Instead, I found a war. But in fighting it, I discovered something I didn't know I was looking for: a community.